Hey guys, welcome to the Real Life Everything podcast. We're your hosts, Ebony Westwood
and Kristen Noel.
Here on the RLE pod, we dive into the real, relatable, and raw topics as we navigate adulthood and real life our dreams.
Our mission is to support women by encouraging authenticity, self-awareness, and celebrating all our real life wins and sisterhood along the way.
What are you real lifing today, Chris?
I'm real lifing everything. Let's get into it.
Hey guys, I'm Ebony Westwood.
And I'm Kristen Noel.
And welcome back to the Real Life Everything podcast. Hey Chris.
What's up, girl? I kind of zoned out just now.
I'm laughing because I literally been watching, obviously, watching our episodes, and it's like we have a good flow. We always introduce ourselves and be like, "Hey, Chris." You be like, "What's up, girl?"
Hey, girl. Hey.
Anyway, hey, girl. So welcome back, everybody. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel pretty rested after our weekend, and it's been busy. But it's busy in a good way. Like, can't complain right now. Just trying to keep my mind centered, focused, on track with everything. Still in a transition season, but it feels good.
That's good.
Yeah. How about you?
I feel rested too.
Good.
Real estate school finally came to an end last week.
Woo!
I passed my test.
Yay!
I examined out, so I'm so thankful for that. This is my second round, and it's giving my final round.
Yes.
I feel rested as well because now I don't have to show up twice a week, to those mandatory classes. I can kind of just take it just a little bit easy on myself. Of course, the next step after your education is to go and test for your license so that, all of that can become very official. So, of course, I still got to stay on top of things, stay on top of my studies and, stay on top of scheduling my exams so that I can go for my license. But at least I'm out of the class.
Yeah.
That timing was something else. It was long, but it was necessary. I've been in class since June, which I shared here on the podcast before. Been in class since June, and it's just been one long ass summer.
Yeah. You've been juggling so much.
Yeah. But I'm thankful though. So that's what I've been up to.
Right.
Yeah.
We keeping it pushing. We keeping it moving
Yes.
on top of everything else going on in our lives. That's just our superpower, right?
Yeah.
Keeping it going.
Yeah. But you're saying you're coming to a rest, so and you're in a transition still. So what's going on? What's new?
Yeah, really the same stuff as usual of just just balancing everything in real life along with career stuff, business wise, and just trying to maintain the balance in life. But so far it's cool, just it's busy, but like I said, it's a good busy, and I feel like I'm in the right headspace for where I want to be. And it's just the daily work of maintaining that. It literally is daily work, and continuing to remind yourself you're doing the right thing, reminding yourself that you're worthy for the things that you want out of life, and just having that discipline to just keep it going, it's just sometimes the process can be dry or boring or whatever, but literally just keeping it going.
Yeah. On our last couple of episodes, you shared about, I want to think about it. Because listening to you now is just kind of I want to kind of piggyback off of some of the things you shared before. So you're transitioning, we're only in the month of September. We still got 3 more months to go in the year.
Yep.
But you do feel like you're getting close to just real lifing those dreams in your business as well as in your personal life. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with this, but I hear you.
Yes.
But we also still got 3 months left. Do you feel like you are at a place now, in your business or either in your life where you feel the rest of the year looks pretty promising, I can maybe relax a little bit more, take it a little bit more easier?
Yeah.
Or do you feel this
Good
is
question.
pedal to the metal season for you now?
I think it's a little bit of both because it's definitely giving, there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I have that pressure on myself to like have all these goals for the end of the year. I'm not even thinking like that.
That's
I'm
good.
not thinking of in terms of like, I got to make sure I get XYZ done by December. I'm just kind of taking it day by day. So I did take the opportunity for the end of last month, going into this new month, to kind of just reflect. And I ended up journaling. I found these journal prompts, and I love me some good prompts.
Yes.
I found some prompts that are pretty geared towards like end of the year reflections, but I was just like, it doesn't have to be the end of the year for you to reflect.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I just went through them, and it was about 12 questions. Shout out to Charlie's Wellness Toolbox.
Okay.
Because she tweeted like these 12 journal prompts, and they're so good. So I just took some time to go through them, and it was less about like personal goals and what you achieved this year, and more about the holistic like picture of what it means to live a fulfilling life. So it does include things that you achieved, but it also includes relationships and how you feel, and what does that ideal version of yourself look like, feel like, how does she think, and just like community too. And I think that was a big thing for me, because it was just like, we can't do anything alone out here. And I know we've talked about this on our show before, just the power of building community and the power of being intentional about the relationships that we welcome into our lives, the relationships that we curate. And as we forge ahead, just being like very intentional about like, what type of connections are we seeking, and what are some of those like green flags or red flags or deal breakers or character traits about people and the connections that we're building in life. So I thought that was a pretty interesting question. It was like one that I haven't necessarily thought of before, in terms of what are some of those values that I'm looking for in not just like a romantic partner, but also just like regular connections, community building, stuff like that. So that was pretty interesting for me.
Okay. Do you care to elaborate? Like, do you feel like you've maybe experienced that since reading that prompt? Like, do you feel like, oh, this was just something I was just reading about, and this is actually happening in real life right
Honestly, yes. So, so I had this like partnership. I was kind of like working in tandem with somebody earlier this year, and we decided to dissolve our partnership, and it was actually her decision to dissolve it, which was fine and everything. Like, it was all good on my end. I thought we could still kind of maintain our relationship, but then that kind of just like, it didn't really end the best way. Like, it kind of ended a little not even ended sour. I thought it ended just kind of like, okay, that's over with. We worked on something and it's kind of over now. So let's just part ways. But then I realized that she like removed me on the social platforms we were connected.
Yikes.
I was like, wait, I haven't seen her.
Too deep.
Yeah, I was like, I haven't seen her post in a minute. And then I noticed that like we weren't friends anymore on LinkedIn or Facebook, where we had been connected before. And so I actually called her just to see, what was up. And it was just so strange, because one day she was liking my posts and updates, and then I found out we're not even connected anymore. So I thought that was weird, and I didn't think that our partnership ended on like a bad term. But then when I called her to ask about it, it was kind of just like she was offended by something, and I feel like she was projecting that I kind of had this attitude that I didn't have. And so anyway, all that to say, not to even like, speak ill of her in any way, but more so just kind of like some character traits that I'm looking for. I would want people to kind of assume the best, like, especially if we have formed some type of relationship or friendship or association, and things are positive, you see that I'm contributing X, Y, Z. It's not just a one-sided relationship. If something does kind of go off, then I would want somebody who can speak transparently on that and
Yeah.
clear things up, you know, like
Yeah.
give somebody the benefit of the doubt, and instead of taking offense to something, you know, just start that conversation like, hey, I felt like this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you intended for it to feel like this,
Yeah.
but this is how I felt. I just wanted to express that, you know. So for me, I don't want to just throw away relationships.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's
I
good.
value people that I built relationships with. And even if I'm working on something and it doesn't work out, like I still would want to have that, you know,
Yeah.
connection. So yeah, I think for me, it's just like, if I'm looking for, you know, just like integrity in a relationship with somebody, how does that person kind of manifest that integrity? Like including how they deal with conflict. Are you just going to assume somebody meant something and project that onto them, or are you going to have a conversation with them
Yeah.
about it? So yeah, that's just like one thing that happened recently that made me go like, like, yeah,
Right.
it didn't really feel good to see that, like, oh, we're all of a sudden not connected, and you're thinking that I carried it some way that I wasn't, you know, like
Yeah.
I don't have ill intentions, or I would never just have like a negative, you know, just like out of nowhere, just feeling negative or thinking negative of somebody's situation.
Yeah.
So just, yeah, I just want people to speak up if you're feeling away, and especially if we have like a positive body of work together.
Yeah.
Even if something you felt like wasn't as a positive experience for you, just like have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
You know, just like confront it in a very calm, kind way.
Yeah.
Because more than likely, I don't just have this attitude of, you know, F
Yeah.
you. You know,
Yeah.
it's never that for me.
I can affirm everything you just said here because we are both partners with real life everything. And we've been doing this for almost a year. I feel like every time I talk about something on this podcast, I'm like, wait a minute, was it a year ago?
I know, right?
Was it? I think
It was pretty much a
it's
year
coming
ago
up on
now.
a year, right? So yeah, when we started talking about RLE and manifesting this moment here, like we had to go through some ebbs and flows to get here, and just like I said, like affirming what you just said, like I definitely like what you're saying is so true about you, because in times when we had to figure things out and there was some discomfort, I communicated that with you and you was just like, oh, and you responded with positive energy, positive words, you affirmed, and you stood like you stood grounds of who you are and your reason for showing up in the very beginning of RLE, you know, in the first place. And again, like that manifests how we are sitting here today. So I definitely, like, I know that personally about you, and just hearing you say that out loud, I think like, it's like, wow, like that's so true about her, you know? But also I can relate to what you just said too, in terms of like a partnership that I was working with a female or a few ladies right at the beginning of the pandemic. I was working with this one female entrepreneur who was pretty good with what she was doing as far as with like working with different brands and doing branding work. But I don't know. I think maybe it was like maybe her first time. It's not up to me to assume, but maybe it was her first time like really working with a team and building with a team, building her business with a team in mind. And I was a part of that team, and that was my first time. Like simultaneously, I was feeling super successful, super happy working with this person and these different brands. But then I don't know. I guess when shit hit the fan, it was just like. It was like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was, I don't want to use the word ghosted, but it felt like it was a ghosted situation. Even though we communicated like, hey, we won't be able to move forward with this. It was just like, it felt ghosted, you know? And what happened?
And this was somebody you hired?
No, this is someone that, I don't want to say hired me, but like partnered with me to work under they contracted me out to work with their brand.
Got you.
But yeah, so since then, up until RLE, I felt, no, it was a little before RLE. There was another girl group female entrepreneurs who wanted to partner with me. Someone wanted to, bring me onto their vision and help them manifest their vision. And I was, excited about it, here for it. But I had some resentment towards it because I had already experienced working with a girl group before in this business world. And I was just like, one thing I learned from that first experience was that they didn't appreciate me for me, like my authenticity. They didn't appreciate that I am, I'm knowledgeable, I'm smart, I'm focused, I'm driven. I just felt like they didn't appreciate those things about me, and they wanted to dim my light in the room, and to be honest, I'm no slave to anybody,
No.
I'm here to support people's dreams. I'm here to help you manifest your dreams. I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. However, I need to do all of that in my authentic way,
Right.
And with that first collaboration, I just didn't feel that. I didn't feel appreciated, and I didn't feel valued. So then when the second opportunity came to work with another female entrepreneur group, I was just like, I want to do this with y'all, but, and of course I had my reservations because of what I experienced before.
Kind of jaded.
Yeah, very jaded. But fast forward, I started to, time. I believe that time heals all wounds. So I think that with time, it helped me heal that wound and not project what I experienced, my first time with, the first group of female entrepreneurs, what I experienced with them, not to project that on everybody, So when it came to RLE, I was excited to do this with you and with our team. But there was just a little bit of reservations there because, and not because of y'all, but because of my experience. And I just felt and also the enemy's just you wasn't successful the first go around. You're not going to be successful this time around.
That voice kind of telling you that.
That voice, Yeah, so I had to work through that. And fast forward, here we are today, manifesting, working through personal, I don't want to say issues, but just personal things, and then also just wanted to show up in this space and believing that it can be done. And that's why we're here, So I definitely can relate to what you just shared here.
Do you feel like there were any indicators that you could kind of identify going into that partnership? That was there anything telling you this doesn't feel good? Was there things that you could see before shit hit the fan?
Yeah, the red flags, for sure.
Okay, so what were some of those red flags, if you can remember, if you can summarize them?
Yeah, I think one, just really paying attention to the way people talk to you is important, I'm a Pisces, and I'm very sensitive. So you have to be, I like to be around people that makes me feel comfortable, whether they are speaking to me or I'm speaking to them. Security is just important for me. When you speak, I need to feel secure in what you're telling me and in the tone of your voice, right? I don't want to feel like you're talking against me or at me. I want to feel like you're talking with me in a sense. And vice versa. So I would say one red flag was just how the person felt like they can talk to me, and it's I'm no little girl.
Was it kind of condescending?
Yeah, and so, but I felt like it was my first big shot to work with someone. This person was working with people that I dreamed of working with. And I felt like this is my big shot, and being in the fashion industry, or probably any industry for that matter, but definitely in the fashion industry, there are a lot of stylists that work up under these big brands, these big labels, who are just not happy, internally with their position and job, because they're not being treated well, they're not being talked to well, but it's fashion, and it feels like your big shot. It feels like, oh, I'm working with my ideal client, that ideal celebrity, that runway show, I'm in, and I'm in my prime season, right?
So you put up with a lot because it's the glamorous job, but behind the scenes, it's not as glamorous.
Yeah, and you just kind of just you chalk it up and you say, you know, this comes with the territory, especially when working in the entertainment industry, right? It comes with the territory. So because I already have that mindset, express it to anyone other than like my partner at the time or my family and friends. But to that person, I really didn't communicate like, hey, you know, the way you're talking to me makes me feel like this and I don't like that. And, you know, or, you know, just like, hey, how can we improve our relationship so that we can show up better, you know, as a team? Like, I didn't feel confident enough to talk to that person about that. And over time, they felt like they had more power than me. And essentially, they kind of did because I didn't speak up, right? So just getting back to your question, like, yeah, the way that they communicated to me, I was not happy with that. There were plenty of nights that I cried. I felt a lot of mistreatment, you know. But the thing is that what I learned is that they were, in a sense, intimidated by me because I'm a powerful ass woman.
Exactly.
Okay? I'm smart. I'm very knowledgeable. I know what I'm doing. You know, you can put me in a room and have me try to figure out anything. I'm very creative and I will figure it the hell out. You know what I mean? And I'm very trustworthy, especially when it comes to my business. So I learned that person was intimidated, intimidated by me. And I knew that like while working in that collaboration because I was trusted to work closely with our clients. So a lot of the communication with our clients came through me. A lot of communication that came from our clients came through me into our team. So like the clients love me. I'm a bubbly person, you know, I love people. So like me showing up as myself with them, they love that. And what happened is that if something arises, the client would reach out to me first, you know, and then I go and communicate it
instead of her.
Exactly. And then to them, they probably like looked at it as, well, why are you reaching out to her? Or, and I don't know, it was just weird. Like I could go on and on and on about that situation. And again, like you said earlier, like there's no ill malice here. Like I'm not here to talk negative about anybody, but that's my real experience. And the impact that it had on my life for a very long time is that I was intimidated with working with other women. But I've always been the woman, and I shared this on our first few episodes. I've always been a woman that wanted to impact people's lives. So that involves community. That involves, you know, being in person. That involves having deep conversation. That involves peeling back a lot of skin, you know, to be able to be personable with people. But how can I be personable with people, with someone, if I am walking around with this dark cloud feeling like, well, every time I open my mouth and say something to someone, they feel some type of way about me. They don't accept me for me or, you know, things like that. But I'm so thankful that I worked through that. And I learned that you were saying earlier, you want people to have the expectation of having a positive outlook on things, right? Instead of thinking like, oh, Kristen, you know, X, Y, and Z, so I'm just going to kind of like fade away from this relationship. Like, no, have a positive outlook. I learned that, one, that's something that I wasn't doing. I wasn't having a positive outlook. I allowed the enemy and these voices to get to me, you know, but the truth is that those voices are not real. Everything that is happening around us isn't always like negative. There's a lot of positive in our negative situations. It's not always that person. You know, when people are like projecting on you, like that sometimes, a lot of times it's something that they are going through.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with you.
Most of the time.
Right. So when you learn to separate yourself from that and just know like, oh, it's not me. It could be a them thing. You know, like you learn to just kind of manage it whenever you're in that situation.
So. I think discernment is so key. Because sometimes those voices are there for a reason. It could be your inner voice alerting you to something that is very real. But you just have to be able to discern whether or not it actually applies to, I think, any given situation. So, for example, your voice was telling you that something was off in that relationship, in that partnership. And you were right, but maybe in the next partnership, the voice is still telling you, don't do it. But it's just like, we have to discern, well, there's no signs here in this particular relationship that it's going to be like the last one. So, just learning to kind of tap into our inner voice is important and not projecting things
Yeah.
onto new situations. But I can so relate because I feel like the situation that I was speaking of with the woman who I was formerly partnered with in our kind of business setup, I think a lot of her projection came from intimidation too. And I've had that experience in a past, professional contract that I was in as well, where I was working with somebody who was a little bit older, and I think her seeing kind of like how I move or the type of
Yeah.
confidence that I have, or like the way that I'm living my life versus maybe how she lived her life.
Yeah.
I do think that intimidates people, and
Yeah.
you can kind of just tell in how they like respond to you, the kind of energy that they give you. And it's just like sometimes it can be night and day, where you start off positive, they're
Yeah.
happy to bring you
Feel
on
like,
board,
yeah.
they're like, oh, you're so good, and it's like the same reason they wanted to work with you is the same reason
Yeah.
why they be like stank about it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because they start to get intimidated. So I mean, I think for me, and it's not always like so clear to tell like right away going into a situation.
Yeah.
But I think once those signs start to come up, the important thing is maybe to address it the best way that we know how.
Yeah.
And like we haven't always known how to address it. I know I didn't always know how to
Yeah,
address
for
it.
sure.
And you kind of shared how you didn't know at first either. But do you feel like that's something that you've gotten better at now, of being able to, like, when you feel something, speak up about it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like at this point, there's no point of wasting time
Yeah.
in the sense of like not speaking up, you know?
Right.
And it's not anymore. It's not because of what I've been through, but it's just like the woman that I am today. It's like, let's just talk about it, you know? And it's not always like the easiest discussion to have, or
Yeah.
it doesn't always feel easy, but I do feel like it is important to talk about it, you
Yeah.
know? What I also learned, especially with RLE, is that change is good. You know, we have experienced a lot of changes in the past, 9 months now with RLE.
Yeah, just building it, bringing it to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, out your perspective. I have this quote that's in my home that says your perspective can either be your freedom or it can be jail for you.
Oof.
You know?
Talk about
So whatever perspective you choose to have can either be bondage or it can be freedom. And of course we're aiming for freedom.
Yeah.
I'm not always perfect, but I'm aiming for freedom. And I also learned, and we talked about this on a couple of our last podcasts, about doing the inner work.
Yeah.
Like I also learned just through my own personal growth that a lot of times I can assume the worst in things. Or what's the word? My therapist loved this word. But pretty much like, I don't want to say manifest, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word right now, but like pretty much like I can just assume, like I can already predict, you know what I mean? Like what's happening or what's going to happen, even if it's not true. Like, and I think that that's just like, that's bondage, you know? It's like, if you have no facts, and we share this, right? If you have no facts to back that up, like no real hard facts to back it
Where's
up,
the evidence?
then what are we doing here? What are we talking about here? So just, again, like when the ebbs and flows come, like, let's just talk about it instead of assuming, you know, and give that person the opportunity to speak on their behalf. And we've experienced that so much with manifesting RLE. And I'm so thankful that we've gotten through those times. But like in those moments where, okay, hey, like, Chris, you wanted to address something with me or vice versa, for us to just be able to speak up, it shows a lot. It tells a lot about ourselves because we're here today.
I know.
You get what I'm saying? Like, we didn't give up. We didn't just like throw in the towel on each other.
Right.
We didn't assume for one another and just be like, call the quits where, you know, they're out. But like we worked through it. We showed up for ourselves. We showed up for the team. We showed up for the brand, and we're here.
Yeah. And like going back to that idea of freedom versus bondage, I feel like even that feels like a form of freedom to kind of feel like you can talk through something, or you can get through something difficult and then come out stronger, come out better. Like,
Yeah.
that feels like a form of freedom as well. Because
Absolutely.
the opposite of that is that, maybe something goes sour, and maybe a relationship is ended, and then you kind of like are stuck in this thought process of like, kind of like how you said before, you are scared to potentially work with other partners. You're scared to enter in these type of new relationships. And that's that
That's
bondage. It's
bondage.
that bondage because it holds you back from something that could be fruitful.
Could be so
And
fruitful.
how are you ever going to build your community, build your relationships, friendships,
Yeah.
partnerships, if you continue to operate in that line of thinking?
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah.
crazy just thinking back on it. Like, I was just in that space for so long, so scared to work with other females in the industry. And like that.
The awareness is everything.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like, something that triggers in my mind is like, to one of those green flags, I guess, that I'm looking for
Yeah.
in the relationships is just that confidence in how you operate with other people,
Yeah.
and knowing that like somebody else's light or success doesn't dim mine. Like, I want
Yes.
somebody who is super confident, in themselves and what they do, so as not to even like, you're not threatened in any way, and I'm not even, no, I'm just a girl. Like,
No,
I'm
for
just a
sure.
girl. So like,
For sure.
it's not even like I'm saying like, oh my gosh, people are so intimidated by me. No, but just kind of like looking for that character trait in somebody if you're entering into something like, again, romantic, friendship, work wise, whatever. How do they operate with you when you're shining, or when they see you doing your thing? Are they cheering you on?
Yeah.
Even if you have a trait that they wish that they possess, like, are they kind of shading you? Are they
Yeah.
like not celebrating you?
Yeah.
I think those are just some of the things that I would probably have in the back of my mind if I'm like entering into a
Yeah.
new something with somebody.
Yeah. That reminds me of one of the words we like to use often here is authenticity. Like, it's so important for people to show up as their true selves,
Yeah.
And I feel like the more we show up as our true selves, the more I don't really have to like do too much thinking or figuring out like, who are you,
Right,
I
right.
see it right through you because you show up as that person. And consistency too. Like, if you're consistently showing up as almost the same person every day,
Yeah.
through the good and through the bad, then that tells me a lot as well. So I think, just what you're saying is so true. It's necessary to be able to do a room check or
Right.
check the
Vibe
temperature.
check. Yeah,
Yeah,
temp
vibe
check.
check.
Like, who in this room is making space for me to be my authentic
Authentic
self?
self.
And who do I feel like I got to hold back? And if
Yeah.
you ever feel like you got to hold back, I guess that's the red flag. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't be my full self because I feel like I'm being shadowed or dimmed, So that's
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. That's definitely
Yeah.
like, who makes space for all your quirks, your highs, your lows, just your full self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you bring all of this into like a more intimate space or intimate relationship with someone? So what are some of those, based off of the prompt that you shared with us earlier, like what are some of those things that you think of when it comes to relationships?
So I think
Personal relationships.
for me, I'm kind of thinking of like, who are some of the people that I spend the most time around?
Yeah.
And why do I enjoy my time with that person?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of like some of the people who I really love to be around, with you being one of them, just loving your vibe, your energy, always feeling good around you. And people like, some of my best friends,
Yeah.
my mom, for example. Also like, anybody who I'm dating who I really feel them. Like, why do I like them so much? So I start to like point out some of those things. And it can be parts of their personality mixed with parts of my personality. And I'm just starting to call out, okay, well, with this person, I can goof off with.
Yeah.
This person, I can share my dreams with.
Yeah.
This person, I can talk about some of the challenges that I'm having, and they relate, they listen, they make space. So it's just like, does that person share openly and vulnerably with me? Because if I feel comfortable around you, I'm going to be vulnerable around you. So if I
Yeah.
feel like this is a safe space for me to be vulnerable, and you also feel like it's a safe space for me, I really, really value that. I really
Yes.
value when people can just share and open up and peel back those layers and not feel like you have to be a perfect person,
Yeah.
because I'm far from a perfect person. So yeah, just kind of like looking into the relationships that I do have that are positive and starting to point out some of those traits, like what makes this a positive relationship. And then maybe if I'm thinking about other relationships that didn't end so well, I'm just like, okay, well, this relationship either wasn't consistent or something about our vibe doesn't mesh because of XYZ.
Yeah.
And so that exercise in kind of pointing out those values, it just makes you aware. It makes you more aware of what to look for and kind of what to sit and think about when you're thinking about your relationships. So again, awareness is everything.
Yeah.
And just taking that time to reflect, I think, can help me just make sure that all of my relationships are strong, they're purposeful.
Yeah.
I want to be in relationships with people who I can serve, and they can serve me, mutually. Like this is
Absolutely.
mutually beneficial. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's the main thing for me, is just like knowing those character traits in the people that I'm building community with.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my girl group, or my best friends, childhood best friends, we talk about things like this all the time, like almost every day. And we're constantly prioritizing, making sure that we show up in a way not only that's good, like true to ourselves, but also true and good for each other. Kind of like what you were saying earlier, in short words, I would say, like, meet people where they're at. Not every friend is the friend that you laugh with, cry with, you shop with, you travel with.
Right.
Not every friend is that friend. So if you can just meet people where they're at, like you have that one friend that you can cry and you have the other friend that you can laugh with, the other friend who wants to go and spin a bag and travel the world. Like, just meet people where they're at. And if this girl group or this community of yours, girls and guys, if they are able to bring out, character traits that are relatable to you, then that's your tribe,
Right.
And that's so important to have in your life.
And knowing that some people do have certain places in your life, and that's okay. And just kind of being aware of, well, this person is a person that I feel comfortable crying around.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily this person, but that's okay. If, I think we can have different types of relationships with
different types of
different friends.
Different types of friends for different reasons. And that's just
serve different purposes.
Yeah. But that was good. And I'm really excited. I know we talk about this a lot in the chat, but I'm really excited to hopefully bring on some of our friends after this discussion to be able to talk, like dive deeper into, the relationships of the topic of relationship, and also hear from our friends, like their point of view or their perspective of who they think we are and how we show up in their lives.
I know. It's time for us to invite some other voices on here.
Yeah. It's easy for us to talk about like what we do, but I'm very curious to hear what my friends got to say. But yeah, so on that note, we could definitely wrap up today's episode. This was good. I'm really thankful that we were able to have this discussion. And as always, guys, we appreciate you all for being here. We appreciate you all for tuning in and listening to our podcast on the Real Life Everything Pod. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, feel free to like, comment, and share this. But also make sure you subscribe.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, guys. Love y'all. Mean it.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of the Real Life Everything Podcast.
Yes, make sure you use our hashtags on social media, the RLE Pod and Real Life Everything.
And don't forget to follow us on all platforms. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at the RLE Pod.